I just wanted to introduce everyone to Dr. Dan. He's a surgeon for a long time, and he's also the co-founder of Apeiron Academy. It's an epigenetics and human performance organization. And yeah, I would like you to, I'll give you the floor and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I was a surgeon for 10 years. And even at the time I got into medical school, I was very disenchanted with the whole medical system, the way it was set up. It was so focused on disease management and pharmacology that there wasn't much room for people that were not sick to enter into the system and get guidance on being healthy. It just wasn't available. And so I started doing that as a hobby about 5 or 6 years into my surgical um, career. And then it just picked up. And finally, in December of 2009, I just walked out of surgery and just said, I'm done. That's it. I'm going to just focus on this piece, and rest is history. I mean, we created our medical centers. We have our academy. We have our own genetic company. I mean, it's been a wild ride.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's hard. It's an interesting thing because you have thousands and thousands of doctors all over the world, and you go to med school, spend a lot amount of time, energy, investment, and then you start your career. It takes it's not a year or two thing. You have to. Some people end up doing it for the rest of their life, but there was some shift within you to break out of that old paradigm and
Yeah.
then move into something new.
Well, and our goal now is to create a new paradigm of health. Um, Step away from the old linear reductionistic system of health and looking at it through complexity thinking and understanding the human system as a complex adaptive system rather than a complicated system like we've been doing so far.
Beautiful. And yeah, just the way I discovered you was it was during an interview in London, Rio,
Hmm.
your podcast, and I was curious about epigenetics, and then the way you described epigenetics as the software of our bodies, and that just rang some bell in me because I was a software engineer for a very long time, but I was always curious about the human system, and just your words sort of ignited this fire within me, made me more curious about this, and that's how this whole journey started. And I became a part of the Apeiron Coaching Academy. It has to do with. Can you describe the word epigenetics?
Yeah, so I mean, the DNA molecule is the most fascinating molecule I've ever encountered. I mean, it has one purpose in mind, and that is for you as a multicellular organism to survive and thrive in ever-changing environments. And what I mean by that is your environment is everything about the body itself, about everything outside of the body, about everything you put into it, about everything you experience. That is what the DNA is sampling on a millisecond basis. It's seeing what is going on in this environment in order to make this system as functional as possible in this environment. So, it's just like changing a dietary program. If you go from eating meat to being a vegetarian, that's a big stressor on the body. And suddenly you've changed the environments, not only the intestinal environment, but also the calories that you absorb. And so what happens is the body has adaptations that occur. And most people, when they think of DNA, they think of mutations or things that are passed on through genetic inheritance. But the epigenetic piece, this is the piece that we function with every day. This is the piece that we have control over, that we can change expressions of the genes. So our DNA codes for all these 23,000 genes, but we have an epigenome that overlies that, and that will control which genes are expressed, how much they're expressed, whether they're even expressed at all. It can downregulate, it can upregulate, and it does so in an adaptive process to the body, and what we call, you get an emergence of a new trait due to that. So, the epigenetic piece is coming on very strongly as the primary control we have on creating an optimal body, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love how it always brings this possibility of change, that we are not stuck in one system based on our parents and their parents. So it gives us a possibility, a hope to look up to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody is in the medical centers. When people would come in with diabetes or obesity, they would always say, "Oh, it runs in my family," and it may be true. You may have genetic predispositions to that, but that doesn't mean that you're destined to get that. This is where epigenetics plays a role. So you can have a predisposition to get insulin resistance, which is the early form of diabetes, but the expression of that is reliant on the environment. So whatever you do, I mean, yeah, if you're going to eat high sugar foods, a lot of simple carbohydrates, yeah, and not exercise, then yeah, the obesity is going to be a problem. I mean, the biggest obesity variant that there is the FTO gene, RS99609. It's researched the most to identify a gene that is responsible for obesity, and it's very strong. And yet, my wife has that variant, and she's 5'9", 135 pounds, and about 12% body fat. But what they discovered about this variant is if you exercise on a regular basis, there's no expression of this one. So it's actually due to her lifestyle. She didn't know she had that gene during the early part of her life, but she exercised, and so she was able to maintain a very athletic body habitus, even though she carried that genetic predisposition.
mm. Yeah. It's exercise is it's if anything if there's any stress in the system, or something is going on in life, and you ask a friend, they always tell, hey, why don't you exercise? It has become so normalized, so cliched, but it has to do with
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say the exercise is what we call a hormetic stress. So this is a good stress. So anything that will take you out of your comfort zone. So the DNA has this zone that it knows to function, and this is your familiar zone.
Mhm.
And you can go up and down within this zone, but if you go outside of this zone, that creates a stress. And this is what exercise does, is it creates a stress on the system. But when you have repeated stressors like that, so you repeat the exercise ongoing, there's a gradual adaptation that occurs in the DNA. It says, this is an environment that requires this kind of activity. So I need to upregulate things like muscular strength, upregulate things like muscle glycogen levels, uh, decrease inflammation, because inflammation keeps getting repeated from these repeated exercises. So you create anti-inflammatory aspects. So all of these stressors create a new familiar zone that you begin to function in, and the body becomes healthier for it.
Absolutely. And once you cross that zone, you have other benefits as well. Sometimes you might access the flow state. You might have, a lot of the good neurotransmitters running in your brain, and you are focused and like really grounded that day. So it's a really, I would love to jump into one of my favorite topics is routines.
Uh-huh.
Routines, and that space, the 2 hours or 3 hours of space in the morning, gives me time to experiment with different ways I can put a little bit of stressor to my system, and play around, right? Just create a routine that is sustainable to my own system. And tell me, what's your view on this, and what kind of routines do you
Well,
use?
it's always important for me to have aspects of a routine. And what I mean by that is not so much strictly programmed, but more time programmed. So we routinely wake up between 4 and 4:30 a.m. and I have an availability schedule that does not start until 10 a.m. So I normally have 5.5 to 6 hours every morning that I spend with my wife doing something, like going for a hike, working out. Most of the time we lay in bed together and we'll read articles and we'll read them to each other. Um, she'll read a book sometimes, and she'll read it to me while she's going through it. But it's a time that's available. It's a free time for me to work on myself. Whether it's going to exercise, meditating, but I don't put that on a strict schedule to say, okay, this is what we're going to do at this time. This is my self growth time, and my connection time with my wife. And so that's been a routine of ours for about the last 2 years, and we really love the routine. I mean, we go to bed at 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, because we found what we were doing is in the evenings we were just ending up watching TV or doing something that didn't require much brain power because we were so burnt out from the day. And by shifting and just going to bed early, I mean, we haven't watched TV in I don't know how long, probably in 2 years, but we don't do that. We have that valuable time for us as a couple, and it's also part of our self growth.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. And my life shifted when I sort of brought more focus and discipline to this part of my life. And those 4 or 5 hours spent can dictate the rest, your energy levels, your state levels throughout the entire day, or probably
Yeah.
roll over to the next day too. Yeah, and it's another good segue to states. It's one of my favorite words.
Hmm.
Um, and it encompasses obviously your levels of energy, your mood, your arousal levels, how alert you are. It can go, even if you go deeper, it can go into a mystical lane as well. So what are your thoughts of the ever-changing nature of the states of the human body? Sometimes we feel great for a few hours, and I used to get the sense that, oh, okay, I have shifted into a new reality and this is going to remain the same. But then the next day, it's like I might be struck with some anxiety, or some the unknown variable just might pop up. But what are your thoughts on this?
Um, I think it's important to explore various states and see what they create. Now, I don't necessarily feel that any state is a bad state. And what I mean by that is you're going to have times when you feel down. You're going to have times when you cry. Those are fine. That's part of the human experience, and that's what makes the experience so sweet, is having that range of states that you can occupy and feel into and experience. That is important. I mean, we've done some exploring in the consciousness space where we've achieved states of just immense unity and full blissed out experiences, and they're great, but it's not a place that you want to be all the time. There's these states you want to fluctuate between, because as the Buddhists say, you can't understand the one state versus without an understanding of the opposite, the yin yang aspect of things. And I think that's important. Everybody's in this pursuit of happiness, and happiness is just, it's not a pursuit. Happiness is a side effect of a state that you achieve. And when you stop putting a label or a judgment on any of those aspects, and understanding that these are part of a healthy, normal human experience. Even being depressed, I mean, that's an experience that people should have, not all the time, but they should be able to experience some of that along with states of pure bliss. It just makes life very sweet.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And I feel society puts on a certain sense of judgment on dogma on the extremity of this either states,
Hmm.
like depression on one end, like the lower states, or in the higher states, where you're blissed out in a different form of altered consciousness. Sometimes society tend to judge you based on where you are in life. It's
Yeah.
not, if people are depressed, you hide it. You cannot cry, you always have to look happy when you're outside, put up a certain persona.
Hmm.
So that tends to sort of, especially right now during COVID, when it's the collective energy that might be, that you might feel if you are an intuitive human being who is sort of really sensitive to the different forms of energy as you go on life. And sometimes it's really hard to find out. And for me, it's been a journey. It's trying to understand myself through the whole lens of the collective, and it put me to different paths, different courses, and that's where my curiosity of the human system came in.
Hmm.
Who am I? What is my life's purpose? Am I here to be just born and to die and to experience, or there is something else behind it? Or so it's another great segue to maybe jump into the esoteric or the mysterious aspects of life.
Okay.
Yeah, and in terms of this, and I've we have two different ways of, I mean, at least the way I feel it, to optimize the human system. One is the endogenous way, the stuff, our breath, our mind, our movement, anything that we can comes within the organism to come to a better state where you could be productive in your life, and have better relationship with everyone. Versus you have the other stuff, the exogenous stuff, substances from the outside. Coffee is one of them. And and right now it's plant medicines have made their way from the Amazon to the West, and it's accessible anywhere. What
Hmm.
are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on using these exogenous substances time to time to sort of obtain a higher state so you could be productive?
I mean, I'm always for enhancing the human experience in any way that we can do that that isn't too detrimental on the system. So, everything that we look at is considered an input to the system, whether it be breath work, whether it be meditation, whether it be food or a bionutrient, whether it be exercise. These are all inputs to the system because I see our physical body as a vehicle for consciousness to reside in and function in this edition that we're in. And the meditation, the breath work, those are all things coming from the consciousness to create. And then you also have, and that could be considered that endogenous. And then you have food and exercise, your environment. These are all uh, exogenous too. So all of these things play in creating the human experience for you. And I always say, I'd rather experience this journey in a Ferrari rather than a Kia. So, even if it's a chemical or a peptide that can give me a benefit of a greater experience, I'm all for it.
Beautiful. I love the way how you described it in your own words, that this body is a vehicle of consciousness.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's people can go in depth, and you could. It's like if you look at tantra and different forms, variations of the Buddhistic lineage. Tantra is all about experiencing life
Hmm.
to its fullest, which I hope I have not taken away from its true definition. And you have the ascetic life, where monks go to the Himalayas, in a cave
Hmm.
and meditate in the dark for 40 days sometimes, or like maybe for a while, and they reach certain states. So I find that life is a like you said, it's an experiment where you can, test out different elements, sometimes on a Ferrari, sometimes on a Ford.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's all fun, and people take it too seriously, I think, most of the time. That's something we're trying to ingrain in our children, is to not take everything serious, and to make sure that the greatest thing that you strive for is to create experience for yourself. It's not about how much money you make, because that doesn't matter in the end. Yes, you can have further experiences with money, and that's a good thing. And it just needs to not interfere with your ability to experience. And that's what a lot of people get locked into. I mean, they're working the 9 to 5 jobs, and then they come home and they watch TV and go to bed and get up the next day and repeat. And to me, that's not the life experience I want to have.
hmm, absolutely, yeah. And what are your thoughts on, because there is this desire within us humans to get every experience that's available to the human consciousness with the tip of a button. So, so I'm saying, we put headbands, we put different things, just as we can alter our brain waves or, heart rate variability to fix a solution right away. And that's a beautiful desire. There's nothing wrong with that. But what are your thoughts on, say, right now, if speaking about plant medicine, and they change our brain chemistry, the neural networks, and the peaks and whatever goes on in this beautiful matter here. And what do you think? What's your prediction on this? Would we be able to develop technology that could take us there without the use of these substances?
Well,
Without just
I'm sure we will. I mean, there's already some strobe lights that say they can take you there. I mean, people do it with music. Flow state is a way of accessing that. It's, the medicines, the psychedelics are something that's available for us to experience um, that state. But it's like I tell most people, is you can't live in that state and function in this reality that we're in at the moment. It's great to check in that higher state of consciousness periodically, but it's impossible to stay there and still interact in this life experience that we have. And so I don't think it's a desire to achieve that state and stay there, but the flexibility to go in and out of that state, or to integrate pieces from that state into your everyday. Um, and that requires integration, a lot of integrative work. Too many people do these psychedelics without any plan. They don't do it with any body of experience that can guide them in really what they're experiencing, and help them to come up with their own understanding of it. You don't want somebody that's going to tell you what it means. You want somebody to help you identify what it means to you, and how that can be integrated into your life.
absolutely. So part of the integration is coming back to reality and doing all the work, taking some
Yes.
time to fill through the work. Take
Hmm.
like 3 months, 4 months with the right people who has done the work before you, so that you are not in the dark. And then, like, it's the way our ancestors used to do. They used to have built temples for the purposes of reaching these states of consciousness. There was a certain time of the year, you had the priests, so it was all structured. And due to the availability of this of the plant medicines right now, it's accessible anywhere. You can go to any city, friends like, hey, there's a shaman coming here. So it's so accessible. Sometimes it tends to lose its power, and the whole the context behind it, the setting are not taken into account every time.
Well, and I see a
And
lot of people that use these recreationally to go out and party and be social, and you know, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but you know, for me, that's not the way to do this stuff. I mean, I don't enjoy doing this stuff with people I don't know. It would always be close friends, my family, and it just makes the experience more sacred overall. And I think that allows you to access a very positive state and access a deeper state when it's shared with people you love. And you know, just you know, I my experience with them, I just look at it and I think I don't have any desire to use recreationally to party. It's just not there for me.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
But
Wow.
that what you were talking about in anchoring yourself is what you were implying a little bit there, of anchoring yourself so that when you go out on these journeys, you still come back. Because a lot of people just don't want to come back from these journeys that they go on. And my good friend Jamie Wheel, who he wrote Stealing Fire. He's part of the Flow Genome Project. Has researched flow for quite a while. He's got a new book coming out that is all about ecstatic states and bliss that is going to be phenomenal. I think it comes out next month, but you've got to make sure you check into that one because it is unreal. I've read some of the stuff from it.
Yeah, it's I've those are the series. I think Stealing Fire and his Stephen Kotler, the other dude.
Yeah.
He his other book, The Art of the Impossible. Yeah, they really break down the science of it. So I really like it.
Yep.
And I also see you are a scientific, rational guy. You come from a school of thought that's ingrained in rationality in the beginning. What was what triggered or what fueled your this curiosity, to seek out the spiritual, um, is something that is much more greater than you, greater than the experience. So tell me a bit more about that.
Um, you know, I've always been, I guess the term people use is a biohacker, but always looking at things that can be done to up level the human experience. I mean, that's it's always been a big goal of mine. And one area, so when we first started up here on, we were doing body work. So we were enhancing the body through physical performance and longevity pieces and, you know, just energy levels, all of that. And then in about 2012, we started adding more of the mind component. So we started adding, you know, stress optimization pieces. We started adding brainwave mapping and understanding brainwave patterns and how those could be changed. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that we started adding the spirit piece, which we found was really important. When we talk to people, you know, somebody asked me the other day, what are your 5 top things that you can do to have an exceptional human experience? And I said, sleep, nutrition, exercise, purpose, and love. And, you know, not in any particular order of importance, but all of those go into creating that life of excellence that we all would desire to have. Just many of us don't know how, or don't have a desire to put the effort in to create that.
It's well said. We have our consciousness, we have the human experience, and we have the life. We all live a certain similar life, and if you're living in an urban city, you wake up. So a lot of us go to jobs that is not solely connected to our purpose, and then you have a really mechanical day, and it follows year by year, goes on, and then there's this thing like what's going on. And still, it's a journey, at least for me, to have the courage to break out of your current state, of the current system, and seek something within. And it takes a lot of fire, a lot of, it's like an emotional journey as well. And, it comes with some suffering, and, and under the suffering is what, under the wounds, as one of my teachers says, it lies your truest gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And tell us more about Apeiron, and what is the message, and tell us about the coaching so that my fellow friends and listeners can have an idea.
So the core mission of Apeiron is to assist people in understanding the limitless nature of our life, from physical performance to mental performance to love and relationships to consciousness exploration. But it's all about things that are enhancing to this life experience. And so we created all of this around that. Our medical centers are focused on, year-long concierge programs with clients that we work with them to upgrade all those areas. And we developed the coaching academy around a lot of the work that we do in the medical centers. That includes understanding genetics and epigenetics. That includes putting all the pieces together in a new thinking paradigm where we use complexity thinking to understand how each of these systems within this human system interact to create an outcome. And, it's not a 1 + 1 = 2. It's in complexity, things are constantly in a dynamic state. And, at one point, 1 + 1 will equal 3, and another point, 1 + 1 will equal 0. So understanding ways to think about how the human system works is one of the key aspects of what we teach in the academy.
Mm-hmm. And it has, but the core component is based on, the foundations is based on epigenetics. And the way, I'm a student of the academy, level 1 certified epigenetic coach, and we had to understand how the different genetic variations, what message they're giving us, and we have to look at the studies. And how does one correlate the trait to the variant?
Yeah, so for anything that's happening within a person, so let's say their system is out of homeostasis and they're in a disease state. We always want to have some one thing that we can do to change that, and that that rarely exists. In fact, I can almost speculate that it never exists, that there is just one thing that causes that, because you can look at a woman who gets a urinary tract infection and you say, oh, okay, well, their system's out of balance because they got a urinary tract infection, so we're going to put them on antibiotics and it heals it up. But that's linear thinking, and that's reductionistic. And so what we look at is we say, okay, this woman got a urinary tract infection. Why did she get it when other similar women didn't get it? What was the cause of it? What initiated it? Why did it initiate it in this woman and not this other woman? Is there something with their immune system? Is there something with their anatomy? Is there something with their diet, their iron levels? Whatever it is, we look at all of these things that can contribute to the outcome, which is a urinary tract infection. We don't just say, oh, well, the root cause of this is this E. coli bacteria. No, that may be the final straw, the final common input that creates this, but there's all kinds of things that go into why that happened in the first place. And so saying, it's just even like Lyme disease. Well, somebody said, well, I got Lyme disease because I got bitten by a tick. Okay, that's great, but that's not the root cause of this. And you can trace this stuff back and say, okay, well, you know, they decreased herd reductioning of deer in the Northeast in many states, and that caused an overpopulation of the deer, and some of the deer were being they were starving, and so more deer ticks became available to carry this. And then you say, well, you know, why are there more deer ticks? Because don't they have predators? Yes, they do. But we look at it and we say, okay, well, due to government policies on agricultural spraying of crops, there was more insecticide used, which killed the wasps that would eat the Lyme carrying ticks. And so, you know, it keeps going and going. And that's why I say there's not a root cause. That, you know, you could say, well, you know, this person got Lyme disease because of a government policy that was enacted 15 years ago. That doesn't really jive well with the root cause hypothesis. So I don't like the approach of root cause. It's because everything is interacting with everything in a human system.
And that comes to, you have a term for it, right? How you investigate the human system. It's the precision medicine.
Precision performance medicine.
Precision performance medicine.
Yeah, it's talking about, people ask me if that means athletes, and it can, but it's performance of the human system. So getting very precise and individualized with each person, so you're not doing some cookie cutter approach to diet or exercise or any of that stuff, and you take it in a precision basis for that person and for their performance outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you know, we go on from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, and we are bombarded with, you know, a lot of stimuli. You have the sound energy coming in, it hits our receptors, you know, from top down brain. It makes there's a response, and and then there's this symphony going on, and that's what makes me. That's what another way spirituality. When you slow down, especially, you know, when you meditate, you could think about certain things. What makes you human? All these different, you know, different signals in the forms of different energy coming in. And based on that, can you give us some tips that we could utilize the outer system that's already existing? Let's say nature, sun, water, the ground. What are your thoughts on this? That, you know, that's already there for us. They're free, it's unlimited.
You know, that's one of the biggest things we encourage with our clients is to get outside more, just because nature is such a vast learning platform for us. You know, people talk about going out to relax in nature. Well, for me, I like going out in nature and exploring and learning. That's what that kind of stuff is about. And you know, we should be able to achieve these states that people seek out, either the flow state or transcendent states. We should be able to do those without the requirements of the medications or psychedelics, but, you know, we're just not there yet. You know, we can get flow state through exercise, but the people that pursue that also are not necessarily doing it the right way, because, you know, you look at Kotler's book from years ago on flow state, and, you know, to get in the flow state, you have to have a challenge that is equally challenging to your skill level. And as your skill level gets greater, the challenge level has to increase in order to get into the flow channel. And that's why you see all these extreme athletes that die young, because they're constantly having to push, because they're addicted to this flow state and they just want to get there. And they are constantly injuring themselves and dying in that seeking of that flow state.
Absolutely. And that's It's another important fact. Another necessary requirement, having a teacher, a mentor, or a tribe where you could, experiment with these different states and in a group. And that's what I really like. I remember I was in a 7-day breathwork retreat in Creston, Colorado, high altitude, different from the the breathing pattern I have in New York, the different stress in the body. And just by being with a group of people and our nervous systems align in the same way because of the similar breathing pattern, that was my first experience of tiny glimpse of this flow state or ecstatic state. And yeah, what about you? What are you into? As far as I know from your pictures, you are a marathon runner or mud, the other
Spartan Race, yeah.
Spartan Race.
Yeah, I had done marathons in the past. I've always been into sports my entire life, into working out. But I like the Spartan races because they require a broad spectrum fitness approach. So it's not very specific as to what you need to learn. You have to have endurance. You have to have upper body strength. You have to have lower body strength. All of it plays in. And you also have to have a mindset that is ideal for it because it is quite challenging. So that's why I like the Spartans. It gives that variety, and it keeps me focused on keeping the variety in my workouts because it is something that I like to do every year, and I want to do better each time I do it. And that's been my routine. I mean, we missed last year because of COVID, but fortunately they're back this year, so we're going to be doing one in May.
Can you describe like maybe in a macro level the different parts of the race, the Spartan race? How is it different from
so we typically do the Spartan Super, which is an 8 to 10 mile course, and over the course there's 26 obstacles that you have to get through, and some of those may be like overhead bars that you've got to go down. There is a barbed wire fence that's about 8 inches off the ground that you have to crawl under for like 50 yards. There's carrying really heavy stones. There is climbing rope ladders or hanging ropes. So it's, you have to have a wide range of skill set in order to perform well. And, people who are strong will do well in certain things. People who have good endurance will do well in the time, but they'll get worn out doing the obstacles. So it's nice to have that variety in a event that can test really all aspects of your fitness.
Well said. I mean, I haven't done my first marathon yet, so I'm still up. For me, I run for 20 to 22 minutes every morning, and I like to stretch out the time and the miles. And it depends on where I am. It's different, if I run in New York City versus here in Marina del Rey, where you have the ocean, you have the sun flowing, sit down by the beach and meditate for a bit. And yeah, yesterday, day before yesterday, I was like meditating, I think 10-15 minutes, and I sat very close to the water. And then in the middle of my meditation, you can hear all these people going by. Sometimes the dogs run up to you and like licks you up and down. And then I hear this like strange sound coming in. It's like this big of a wave. It splashed through my body. My shoes went in one direction, my phone went in another. So I was able to save my shoes. So my phone is like somewhere swimming with the fishes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And what are your, are you working on, what are your besides fitness and, human performance, do you have any other passion that actually, makes you really ignited in life?
Yeah, my wife. So that is a project I never tire of. It's, our relationship is constantly growing, and it's, I think, love and relationship is one of the most important aspects to human thriving that there is. And a lot of people will downplay it or overplay it. But in general, I mean, there's very few relationships we've found that have the connection like we have, and we would love to have other people experience what we do.
Dr. Mikra Hamilton.
Right.
Yes. Don't mind me sharing, how did you guys meet at med school, medical practice, or?
She was a client of mine, actually, many, many years ago. And we developed a friendship, and we would go on vacations together, and we started a CrossFit together back in 2008, which was about the time that we started our relationship. And we haven't been apart since. I mean, we work together all the time. We travel together all the time. We don't have any time apart, which is great.
Beautiful. Yeah. Relationships, with loved ones, friends, family. And because of our daily habits and rituals and, other responsibilities, there's this gap. Not many couples have time to connect. They come back home, they're tired. So it's really, you have to put conscious effort, develop a practice, and then slowly build it up because this is someone you truly want to spend more time with or develop something with. So,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and where are you at this moment? You are, what city are you?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. How is it up there?
Beautiful today. We're going to be 84 degrees, I think. So
84 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. It's a little chilly out here in Marina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, Dr. Dan, do you have any questions for me, or is there something I was not able to, you really wanted to express that I was not able to?
Yeah, I think you covered it well. We covered a lot of bases with that.
Yeah, and thank you very much for this opportunity and for sharing your wisdom. And, I'm
my
looking
pleasure
forward.
to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
Have a beautiful day ahead.
Yes.
Okay, take care.
Take care.